Cute girl with a preppy vibe. Came to the spot with a friend of mine. She caught my eye. From the beginning, I was hooked. I can't tell a lie. Fresh, dressed, and fly. I respect her mind. Some dude trying to impress, but looking goofy at the same time. He bugging, she looking. I'm going for mine. Confidently, I approach with that eye-to-eye contact. She smiling while.
Hey y'all, welcome to the check-in. I'm your girl, STEMFashionista. Sorry that I'm running a little bit late. I ended up working late, had delays on the train, but you know what? I'm here, okay? I am only 9 minutes late, okay? So please spare me with that, all right? Hope you all had a great work day today. And we are going to get into some topics. We have not talked about Trump in a while. So he had his White House Correspondents' Dinner this past weekend. We're going to talk about that a little bit. The election bill, Save America Act, talk about that a little bit as well as Nolan Wells and his passing and what's going on with his case. And we're going to hear from Malcolm-Jamal Warner's widow, okay? So let's go ahead and get things started. But before I do, if you like the vibes, please go ahead and subscribe. Help your girl out, okay? Let's get into it. Okay, what's going
I
on?
hope
Here we
that
go.
everyone finally got to enjoy their entire, very delicious beef tenderloins, very special beef. And I want you all to know that Bobby Kennedy, who's right here, personally ran over the cow in his car. And he cut it up and he brought it here for you to eat tonight. So it's very fresh. And Bobby also suggested an appetizer featuring his favorite cut of male raccoon roadkill. But we drew the line at that, Cheryl. We said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not doing that. We love Bobby. I'll tell you, it is a piece of work. You think it is fun, but he...
Let me tell you guys this. So a month or so ago, they were doing the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and they were going to have Trump speak and everything and attend. And there was a gentleman that tried to do a quote unquote assassination attempt on the president. So they end up having to cancel the event, and they decided to, reschedule it. And he decided to go ahead and attend. So this is what we are watching right now. I've never seen one of these, so let's kind of go ahead and see a little bit about what's happening. Let's keep it going.
But he is a very different kind of a person, I will tell you. But he has what it takes, and he's smart, and he loves the country. I said, Caitlin, congratulations. But it was fake, there's no question about it. But she's a young, attractive woman. She never smiles. I said, Caitlin, do you have a smile? Smile. You have a nice position. You're at CNN Fake News. You should be a happy person. So smile, Caitlin, just smile. But we attack, and I thought Caitlin had really made it big with a major new sponsorship, but then I informed her that it wasn't her on the Bud Light can, it was Dylan Mulvaney. And Dylan Mulvaney cost Bud Light $35 billion in market cap.
And now the Katharine Graham Award for Courage and...
Let me say this. So this Caitlin lady is someone that he's had words with, if you will, in the recent past. So I'm not sure why he thought that she would want to smile when she saw him, if that makes sense. But also, I hate when men want to tell a woman that they need to smile. Like, what is that about? Okay, let's keep it going.
Accountability, named for the legendary Washington Post publisher, and it comes with a prize of $10,000. This year's award goes to the Wall Street Journal. The Journal's courageous reporting on President Trump's past relationship with financier Jeffrey Epstein triggered the release of the so-called Epstein files, thousands of documents that might otherwise have remained hidden from the public. And despite the president's threat of a lawsuit, the Journal published a story about a provocative letter to Epstein bearing President Trump's signature. Trump quickly filed a $20 billion lawsuit against the Journal, revealing reporter Khadija Safdar's home address. Her family had to be relocated. The Journal was kicked off of Air Force One. but the reporters continue to file revelatory stories. Please welcome the winners of the Katharine Graham Award from the Wall Street Journal. Khadija Safdar, Sadie Gurman, Annie Linsky, Josh Dawsey again, Alex Leary, Rebecca Ballhaus, and Ryan Barber. Their colleague, Joe Palazzolo, could not attend tonight.
Okay, so, all right, we got Queen Victoria in the house. Welcome to the check-in. Haven't seen you in a while, but I haven't been live in a while, so thanks for your continued support. Yes. So I think you guys may have heard about Don Lemon. He had some issues with the whole situation at that church several months ago. And so apparently Don Lemon was mentioned as part of President Trump's speech, if you will, or his banter, where he called this man like the dumbest person in America. Okay, let's get into that.
But we had a contest for who had the lowest ratings and the lowest IQ on television, and that was actually Don Lemon, I think. You know, when I said that he's the dumbest man on television, I said, you know, when you say some things, you never make a comeback. It's not like, oh, gee, hey, Don, let's have dinner some night. But I know what I'm saying. And then you have Bette Midler and Jane Fonda actually held a concert to protest the first UFC fight. They didn't want to see the fight. Very few people want. They held an event. Like 3 people showed up. And given the choice between seeing some of the really beat up faces of the UFC, almost everyone chose the people in the UFC. It was between the 2 of them or the UFC. And what about Bruce Springsteen? What the hell happened to that guy? He looks like hell. I don't care what anyone says. I'm not supposed to say. I'm sure he doesn't like the way I look, but I don't look so bad. But at a recent concert, Bruce, all he did was talk politics. He ought to run for office. That'd be interesting. But all he talked about, he made 4 political speeches in his 3-hour show. The tour has been renamed Bored in the USA. And his new song was so bad that Chris Christie, who's like a fan, you know, he goes out and tells everybody how he hates Chris Christie. Keep that guy out of my... And I see Chris Christie there again, high-fiving Bruce Springsteen in the aisle. And Bruce Springsteen saw him and didn't even lift his hand up. And I just wanted, because I used to be friendly with Chris. Chris, when somebody doesn't like you, write them off. Forget it. You got billions of people in the world. You don't have to make a jerk out of yourself. But usually a comedian hosts this dinner.
What's he talking about?
And I think we sort of changed it. Tonight we're going to have somebody who I think is really spectacular. But I've watched comedians get up for the dinner because I have been here actually quite a few times. People don't realize. And there's one time in particular when Barack Hussein Obama hosted it. Do you know who that is?
Why he got to call this man whole government name?
He hit me hard. But actually he hit me with respect. I was sitting with Melania at a table, and you had Brooklyn Decker, supermodel, at a table right next to her. And I really...
So one thing he just said is that Obama hit him hard, but hit him with respect. And so if you guys recall, a few weeks ago, we had reacted to a video where Obama was meeting with a couple folks from a podcast. I forgot which one. And he was saying that the stuff that Trump says to the public, he doesn't say that to him when they one-on-one. And he said he know better. So I'm not sure if you guys caught that, but that's what he had said Obama did on that interview. So I thought that was interesting. Let's keep this going.
Always will like her. She's married to a great tennis player, Andy. And she was at the table, not at my table. And I have watched this clip thousands of times. They keep playing it because they think that was the evening I decided to run for president. It was not. In fact, I loved the evening. I looked at my wife. I said, can you believe it? All these people, that's all they're doing is talking about me. I love this dinner. It's true. And Obama was nice. You know, it's amazing how things work out. He actually showed a picture of the White House with a big Trump on top. Like I put a sign. And, you know, I'm sort of doing that when you think about it, right?
He putting Trump on everything around here.
It wasn't really wrong. But no, he was respectful. He was good, but it had nothing to do. It had nothing to do. I just decided that I wanted to make America great again. This had nothing to do with that dinner. I've gotten so many calls, and for years they've been saying, was that the moment you decided to run? Really, no. I left that night, and the press was there. A lot of the same people that I see, they said, did you have a good time? Unbelievable. And some thought I didn't have, but I did have. And I always remember, though, Brooklyn. She was so angry. She was much angrier than me. She was angry. She thought they were mocking me. And they really weren't. It was just one of those things. And I had a great time. But I left, and I thought I was there 3 or 4 times before that. But I sort of thought, wow, that dinner is really something special. And then I ran. I got elected. I thought the press treated me very, very unfairly. And I don't know. I think I made the right decision, because you hate to go where maybe you're not wanted, but they did want me. They wanted me for ratings, and they wanted me for other reasons, but not for love. And I said, a
lot of men
I'm not
feel
going to
that
go.
way.
First time that ever happened, I think. Was that the first time? Just about. Presidents always came. And I didn't go for 4 years because I got treated terribly by the press. In my opinion, unfairly. I know unfairly because I know the facts, but I got treated unfairly. I didn't go. And this year I was called by your president and your chairman and all of the people, and they said, we'd like to do it. And I said, you know what? With time goes by, time passes, and you sort of look at life a little bit differently. I said, let's do it. And I didn't know it was going to turn out the way it did. It turned out to be the biggest event in the history of your day. That was by far the biggest, right? For all the wrong reasons. But as I said before, a lot was learned from that evening. So much having to do with so many different things, including security. But it's an honor to do it. This is my first. I've been to it numerous times, but as president, I haven't been here. And I'm glad. And they said, would you do it next year? I said, I will be back next year. Now, if you get really, really nasty, maybe not. I don't know. But we're going to be back next year. And well, Jackie will treat me very badly.
Okay, yeah. So I had saw on a couple of headlines, they said that he bombed this White House Correspondents' Dinner. So what I just showed you is all I've seen of the White House Correspondents' Dinner as far as Trump is concerned. Actually, just in general. So what do you guys think? Do you think that he did a good job with this White House Correspondents' Dinner engagement? I don't know, y'all. I don't know. I've never watched a White House Correspondent Dinner before, ever. So all I can say is this what they supposed to do at this? But anyway, we're gonna keep it going, y'all. I did do a poll. Let me see what you guys put here in the poll. Let's see who's gonna poll up for me. So I had 2 votes. So 100% said that he did not knock this out the park. Okay. So as you guys know, Trump has been really pushing to try to get the Save America Act thing, pushed out, supported and everything. So let's see what the update is on that, because you're gonna hear from me first. This item right here is gonna be what's gonna cause us to have another furlough in October of 2026. This right here. Yes. Queen Victoria said this appeared to be seemed more like an attempt roast. That's probably what it really was. An attempt at a roast. Because I'm not fully understanding like what is being said here. So yeah, an attempt at a roast, maybe. So I think I might be right. But yes, y'all, let's keep this thing going. Let's see what he's talking about with this election bill. We're gonna be back in a furlough come October. Just you wait.
Back at home now with 100 days until the midterms, President Trump's ramping up pressure today to pass controversial changes to how people vote. Julie Sirkin is at the White House for us. And Julie, even with the president's new push, it's looking like an uphill battle.
Yeah, the battle is going to be big and the hill is steep, Hallie. That voter ID elections bill that President Trump has pushed for months, it would also virtually ban mail-in voting. He's posting about it on social media multiple times today, Hallie, and the White House press secretary says the president is losing his patience with Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who fired back this week, telling us the White House should direct frustrations at Democrats instead. 4 Republicans also voted against the SAVE Act. But as his bill stalls on Capitol Hill, the courts also blocked the president's executive order to restrict vote by mail. Hallie, 23 states, all of them run by Democrats, sued the administration, which is expected to appeal that decision. Millions of Americans are already voting early and by mail, so the window for the Trump administration to change the rules is closing fast. Hallie?
We thank
Okay, so he's trying to also do an executive order too. I didn't know he was doing all these things. And I'll be honest with you guys, I did not know or I hadn't realized. I've been voting for, 20 some years now, right? And I did not realize that I wasn't providing like an identification or some sort when I was going to vote. I didn't realize it until he started talking about this whole voter fraud, things of that nature. So anyway, let's keep this thing going with how he's trying to push the Republicans to move forward with this America Save Act situation.
The Save America Act, there's no excuse, no reason why it hasn't been done. Even though over 80% of the people are in favor of common sense ideas like making sure you have proof of citizenship when you register to vote and voter ID before you go vote. The Democrats have been united and they don't want that because they try to cheat every single day.
Well, today marks 100 days until the midterm elections, and President Trump is urging Senate Republicans to pass the Save America Act before November 3rd. The president posting this on Truth Social last night. All Republican senators terminate the filibuster, which the Democrats, his word, will do as soon as they get the chance and pass the Save America Act and everything else, including the budget and upcoming debt ceiling. Do it now before it is too late. President DJT. But some senators say it's not that easy. Here's Wisconsin Republican Ron Johnson.
I'm fully supportive of it. In order to get the full Save America Act, we'd have to end the filibuster. I don't think we have the votes for that right now. If we use reconciliation, I think we go a long way toward doing things like election integrity.
Let's bring in Joe Concha, Fox News contributor. So, as was pointed out, the polls suggest more than 80% of Americans think you should be required to show ID to vote, but it's not happening. It's not. This law is not getting passed. Joe, why?
No, it's not, Sean.
So I tell you what, I did not
The president says that we need to blow up the filibuster. Says that we need to blow up the filibuster.
This here. Okay, here we go. Let me remove this. Okay. Woo, my goodness. Can you guys hear me? I had to invite myself as a guest to my own live stream. Let me know something if you don't mind. Okay, I think I see myself 3 times on here. I think I'm back in action, right? Okay. My goodness, y'all. Somebody had tried to call me and knock me off the thing, and I was on Do Not Disturb. Okay. So we were talking about Trump and the Save America Act and all of that. Let's go ahead and get into it. I lost my train of thought. My apologies.
Even if you did, you just need a simple majority in the Senate. The votes, to Ron Johnson, the senator just pointed out, the votes still aren't there. Republicans need 2 senators swayed. The problem is one senator who's currently against the Save America Act, which makes no sense whatsoever, Mitch McConnell, the former Senate Majority Leader, continues to be absent for 6 weeks and now appears to have no inclination of immediately resigning, even though, he obviously should, given the way that he is health-wise, and Joe Biden should have done the same thing when he was president. It's the same kind of situation. So if you criticize Biden for not resigning, you have to do the same thing with McConnell. And he's a no even before he was hospitalized, and he gave no good reason for not supporting the Save America Act. Tom Tillis, Senator, North Carolina, just out of spite, it appears, he cannot also give a coherent reason for opposing, but he is right now. Same goes for Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski, Alaska. Those are the 4 votes that are outstanding. If they could get to 50 and then have J.D. Vance as the vice president be the tiebreaker, that's fine. So most Republicans are behind this. All Democrats are against it. And the problem is that you just don't know if McConnell or Tillis or Collins or Murkowski can be swayed. So in the end, John, Democrats just have to have an okay night to take back the House. And if the Save America Act can't be passed, despite having the Congress, the Senate, and the White House, that's going to depress turnout for Republicans who want this, voters do, more than anything. And not just Republican voters, Democrat voters, independent voters, the majority there as well want voter ID, but yet it can't pass because of 4 senators on the Republican side who still can't give any good reason why they're against this bill. But if it doesn't pass, Republicans are going to have a very bad night when it comes to the midterms in November. That we do know.
Steve Scalise is right now the House Majority Leader. He says this about the Save America voter ID requirements.
It's a basic idea that everybody understands because they do it already. You want to get on a plane, you buy a 6-pack of beer. How about the franchise of American democracy? Let's make sure you are who you say you are, and illegals can't vote in American elections. If you want to go buy unlimited pasta at the Olive Garden, they said you have to show your ID. To get
Now,
into
I don't know
the
about that now. Unlimited pasta?
convention, to
Need
vote
an ID?
for Kamala Harris, you had to show a picture ID.
So those are some of the ironies of the current situation. You don't.
So I will say that, I mean, I get his point. There's a lot of things that we do on a regular basis that requires an ID. And I really did not realize that you didn't need an ID to vote until this situation came up. So interesting. And they're saying that people think it's a necessity, but they're not getting the votes. I think that filibuster being a part of this, they're not going to get it. So they probably need to separate it out if that's possible.
Show ID in federal elections.
Precisely. And Democrats are still staunchly against this, all of them, not one breaking away. Even John Fetterman, who seems to be more of a common sense person on the Democrat side, even he wouldn't vote for the Save America Act. So here you have Democrats, despite 83% of Americans, including a solid majority, as I said, of Democrats and independents supporting voter ID, they aren't budging on this. And one thing that could break the dam a bit, John, is what happened here in my home state of New Jersey, where it was just revealed that 6,600 illegals were added to voter rolls and hundreds voted in elections as a result. You would think that would therefore destroy the narrative, which is, well, illegals really don't vote in elections because it's illegal. Well, they broke into the country illegally, so I don't think the whole illegal thing is really an argument at this point or something they really care about. But in the end, Republicans are on the right side of this as far as voter ID, as far as the public. And if this doesn't pass, then, well, we're broken as a government because this is something that almost every American wants, yet isn't getting because obviously there are midterms coming up and therefore everybody's digging in and no one seems to be not being swayed at this point to vote for something that most Americans say is common sense.
Yeah, you wrote a piece on this for the Washington Examiner, and I want to read part of what you wrote, just so I don't have to make you remember it. Democrats just lost the narrative on voter fraud was the headline. Democrats and the majority of the press used to insist voter fraud isn't a big deal, nothing to see here. But with so many previous races coming down to such small margins, even a so-called small amount is enough to decide power in Washington. And as you point out, there were 6,600 illegal aliens, or at least aliens who are not U.S. citizens, registered to vote in New Jersey because of a computer error.
Yeah, computer error, where, again, the software company says, look, we're handed voter rolls. We don't decide who's on the voter roll. So they're saying it's not a software error. This was the state of New Jersey adding these folks, these illegals, to the voter rolls. And look, the Democrat argument now, John, is that, well, a couple hundred votes really doesn't sway any elections. I bring you back, and you covered this quite well, 2000, George W. Bush, Al Gore. That election was decided in the state of Florida. Remember Tim Russert. It all comes down to Florida, Florida, Florida. Those 25 electoral votes at the time by 537 votes. All right, 537 out of more than 6 million cast in the state of Florida. OK, that is 0.008% of the votes decided the course of history. Let's face it. George W. Bush wins. What if Al Gore wins? Where are we? Does Barack Obama ever become president? Does Donald Trump ever become president? Where are we as a country? 537 votes, a minuscule amount. So, yeah, when you hear Democrats say it's not a lot, it's no big deal, it's just a couple of hundred votes here and there, well, that decides House races, it decides Senate races, it decided the 2000 election, and even in 2020, We had Donald Trump lose in Georgia by 10,000 votes, or 12,000, excuse me. Arizona by 10,000. Wisconsin by 20,000. All right. That is a small percentage of the total votes cast. What if those votes were fraudulent? Then we may have a different president in 2020. And again, the course of history is changed again. That's why this is a big deal. And that's why Republicans need to hammer this point home that even a little is enough to change things permanently for a very, very long time. No vote should be fraudulent. Therefore, pass the Save America Act. The question is, can they get Tillis, McConnell, Murkowski, or Collins on board? Because if they can't, then this thing ain't happening. And it's really that simple.
What a story. All right.
Let me ask y'all a question on the poll here. Should they pass this Save America Act? What do you guys think? Do you think it should be passed? Let me know. We have Queen Victoria. Thank you, girl, for sticking by me, honey. I had all these technical difficulties. She says, I don't know at this, or maybe it's state by state, because I've always shown my ID. Okay. And see, I was thinking, like, I thought I've shown my ID before too. And I was like, what do they mean that you don't show an ID? So maybe you're right. Maybe it is state by state, because I voted in I guess Washington, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Maryland. And for some reason, I felt like I've shown my ID. I've shown something, for them to know who I was. Whether it was like the card, like your precinct card, or maybe you have to confirm like an address. I mean, I don't know, but I thought I've shown something. We got Willard Keeling saying Democrats are crazy. And then we have Leon Bombarger saying, hello, welcome to the check-in. For those who are sticking by me, please go ahead and like the live and support your girl, okay? But yeah, so we have He Gone Fishing saying, can you just sign the ballot? I don't know. I've now when I go vote this year, I'm gonna pay attention, because I just assumed that I provided something. I had to provide something, whether it was an ID, answer some questions. Like, I didn't think they just let anybody walk up there in the line and vote. But yeah, I'm gonna pay attention this year. Okay. So what else we got here? We got He Gone Fishing saying no. See, oh, you're saying that in California you can just sign the ballot. Okay, I wasn't tracking that. Okay. Got you. Did not realize that. Okay. Okay. And I think he did mention California specifically in one of his speeches in regards to Save America Act and why it was needed. So yeah. Okay, so let me see what you guys had to say here about this poll real quick. Okay, let's see. I said, should the Save America Act be passed? 50% said yes, 50% said no. Interesting. Yeah, they packaged that filibuster in there. That's going to be challenging to get this through. But I guess we will see. Okay. So I'm sure some of you guys have heard about Nolan Wells, the young man that ended up passing away over the 4th of July weekend. His body came up afloat, if you will, ashore about 2 days after the 4th of July. There's a lot of chatter going on with that, because he was out with some friends and they say that he wanted to stay on this remote island and whatever have you. And he didn't come home with them, and he's unalived at this point. And they weren't sure if it was like any foul play, if he may have drowned. All that is still up in the air, right? So let's kind of go ahead and check this out, because I want to say the FBI is becoming involved. So let's see what they have to say in regards to that.
Welcome back. The FBI is investigating threats against the people who are with Nolan Wells in the hours before the Mississippi teen vanished and was found dead.
Investigating
Wells, 18, disappeared July 4th after joining friends on a boat trip to Horn Island, a barrier island off Mississippi's Gulf Coast. Search crews scoured the area for 2 days before a National Park Service ranger found his remains on the island's northwestern tip on July 6th. Wells' friends returned to the mainland that July afternoon without him, but Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter previously said investigators believed Wells chose to stay on the island. It wasn't until later that night that his mother learned that he was missing from one of Wells' friends and reported it to authorities. Mississippi's Department of Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tyndall said Wednesday that the FBI is investigating threats made against public officials, the people who were with Wells before he vanished, and their families.
Oh, wow.
Michelle Thomas is now joining us here on Live Now from Fox.
So
Michelle,
let me
thank
ask
so
you
much for
guys
taking the time
this.
to talk to us.
So they have people that are threatening the friends that were with him and the families. That's a lot. Let's see what this lady got to say right here. I mean, I can assume. I'm not surprised, I guess you can say, that these people are getting threats, but to the point where you got to get the FBI involved. Like, I don't think any threats are warranted. Be clear on that, but this is a lot when you got to get the FBI involved in some on this level. And I'm thinking they were going to be involved in trying to help figure out what happened to the young man. They're involved because of the people that are receiving threats that were associated with him. That part I didn't recognize. Let's keep it going.
Thanks so much for having me.
So when we talk about this case, the FBI is now investigating threats connected to the case. So what kind of threats can become federal crimes, and why would the FBI get involved here?
Well, anytime there's a threat regarding anyone's person, placing them immediate harm, there's going to be an investigation. But here, they may also be looking for racially charged threats, given sort of the backdrop and what we've heard about in the public scrutiny, in the public eye, and with the backdrop and history of Mississippi. People are concerned about this case because of sort of the racial makeup and so forth. So if there are any kind of threats along those lines, there's going to be an investigation and possibly a federal one.
Okay.
And when we talk about authorities, saying that witnesses, public officials, even family members have received some type of threat here or there, how can that affect an active criminal investigation that can be happening?
Well, any kind of law enforcement is going to follow any leads, and they're going to try to track any type of threat because they don't want there to be either witness intimidation or witness coercion. They want to make sure that they're able to preserve the evidence and witness testimony, and that persons with knowledge are able to come forward without feeling fearful. So it can taint an investigation and possibly a forthcoming trial if there are constant threats and people are afraid to come forward with the information needed to solve what happened to Nolan Wells.
And we saw the independent autopsy get released over the weekend. We still have a toxicology report, I believe, pending within the state of Mississippi. So it seems like there's still a lot out there that is inconclusive as of right now, and especially after Ben Crump and the independent autopsy that he released. What are we going to be watching for next?
So they're going to really try to piece this together because what the independent autopsy said was that they cannot rule out any kind of foul play. It wasn't conclusive as to the manner and cause of death. That was still undetermined. But at the same time, it did not conclude that the death was accidental. And so therefore, there's going to continue to be an ongoing investigation. This information and evidence will be presented to a grand jury, and the grand jury will determine whether there's probable cause for a criminal trial, for there to be an indictment and a criminal trial to proceed.
And when you see...
Let me ask y'all this. So if they go to trial to determine if there's probable cause for a criminal trial, who would this trial be against? Who would be on trial for this criminal charge if there was one that came about? Do you guys see what I'm saying? Yeah, let me keep this going.
A cause of death listed as undetermined. From a legal standpoint, what does that mean for the case and the investigation moving forward?
That means that they cannot conclude decisively whether this death was a result of either natural causes or an accident in terms of the manner of the death or how he died. So did he die before he ended up in the ocean, or did he die from drowning, asphyxiation or something like along those lines? And so that's the issue, is what Ben Crump and the family want to know is, what was the condition and state of Nolan Wells at the time that he was ultimately ended up in the water? Was he alive or was he already deceased?
And how often does
That's a
this
good
happen in a
question.
case like this where a family might not be satisfied with the determination from either the original autopsy or the current investigation as it happens, and they go and they get separate legal counsel, they go ahead and they get an independent autopsy? Is this something you see common in criminal investigations, or is this a rare occurrence here?
It's reasonably common, but it's really a case by case basis. Here, it just the facts really didn't make sense. The family was saying that Nolan Wells was a good swimmer. He was athletic. He wasn't one to just sort of go into the water or drift off by himself. And no one seemed to know anything. The witness sort of recounts of what occurred were inconsistent. And so when you have those types of things here, that raises a suspicion of foul play. And then there's going to be some sort of independent investigation or autopsy. So whenever the facts don't quite align and and the circumstances are suspicious, then you're likely to see independent private autopsies occur.
All right, Michelle, final word. Anything you want to add before we let you go?
Well, this is still an investigation. So while the family deserves answers, the community deserves answers, this case is being tried in the court of public opinion. But we have to be careful to wait for the evidence and make sure that the evidence is presented, there's an indictment, and that the actual justice system plays out, and that those who are accountable, if any, should be held accountable.
And I think it is actually got another follow-up from that, because it is, and you saw Reverend Al Sharpton say that last week too, which is, hey, let's not rush to conclusion. We have to let the process play out here.
That's right.
But in the age of social media, when there's so much misinformation that's online, there's a lot of passion that's online, and there are a lot of people who put stuff out there that isn't true that's online too. What kind of problems does that create in a case like this when it is so high profile?
Well, it's social media along with artificial intelligence, because we've seen posts on social media showing depictions of Nolan Wells present and alive with a group of friends. We don't know whether those are real or not real. And so social media is essentially filling in the gaps for all of these unknown answer or questions that we have. However,
Let me say this. I really agree with they were saying that Al Sharpton said let the case play itself out, because what you don't want to happen is another Carmelo Anthony situation where you have the court of public opinion um impacting, the results of any particular trial that could be coming up. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, let them go ahead and figure out what happened to the young man, and then go from there. Like, make sure we're doing everything in the right way, because you don't want to have an issue where, okay, well, we're trying to have this trial. If it comes to a trial, right, and you got people who can't, support as a juror because of of their biases, right? So I think if they just go ahead and try their best to get this knocked out and figure out what happened to the young man, and then go from there. Yeah, and then we just go from there. As far as what has happened with him. So I see where Jay Lover said you stopped the poll at 8 because you didn't want the opinion. Actually, I stopped the poll after about, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. So what I did was I put the poll out. I gave people ample time to reply. Only 8 people replied. And the thing about it is that you don't see the number of people replying to the poll until you end the poll. So if you would like to put your answer in the comment, feel free to do so. I have no issue with that. But yeah, I don't sit here and determine the number of people that respond. Like, it's always a surprise. I can't see that while the poll is in operation, if that makes sense. Not on my end anyway. Maybe you guys can see it, but I can't. But anyway, let's keep it going in regards to the autopsy, because they did the family did an independent autopsy as well. And they talked about that a little bit at the press conference. Let's go ahead and finish this out and then get into that.
We can't really judge the credibility or veracity of what we see on social media. So the jurors, whoever's ultimately selected, if there's a trial, they need to ensure that they haven't been tainted by all of the misinformation out there on social media.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Michelle Thomas.
Don't be tainted. Let's
We
go.
are watching attorneys for Nolan Wells' family releasing the results of their independent autopsy report. 18-year-old Wells died after a July 4th boat trip with friends off the coast of Mississippi. His body was recovered on July 6th, and authorities say they believe he drowned and that there was no indication of a crime. But Wells' family says they have a lot of questions. And the family's attorney now says an independent autopsy found the cause and manner of death to be undetermined, pending more investigation. Let's bring in ABC News chief investigative correspondent Aaron Katursky and legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer for more. So, Aaron, walk us through Ben Crump's arguments here. Why release these results if they're saying they don't have a result without more investigation?
Because he promised they would, and the family ordered it, and this is an expectation. They want to keep the case in the public eye. They want to add pressure to Mississippi authorities to conduct what they've called a fair and thorough investigation. And here, the independent autopsy does nothing at the moment, seemingly, to be at odds with the initial suspicion that Nolan Wells drowned off the coast of Mississippi. And as I think Ben Crump's comments reflect, the circumstances of what led him into the water are still unclear. This independent autopsy can't determine, and state investigators have not released their findings yet. But it's based on more than an autopsy. It's interviews with eyewitnesses and video and image analysis to try and understand what led Nolan Wells to go into the water and what were the circumstances that led to that. And those questions still have not been answered.
Brian, Crump is saying the reason this independent autopsy couldn't determine the manner and cause of death is because the state has not handed over enough to their expert in order to be able to do that. How much pressure does that now put on the state to release their autopsy results and also maybe give the family and this independent expert more to work with here?
How much, I think it might be hard to quantify, but it definitely increases the amount of pressure, because I think while Ben Crump and his team are not providing us with answers in terms of what was the manner of death, what was the cause of death, it at least gives enough to say, okay, this is what's missing for us to be able to do the analysis, because simply having a deceased person or a dead body doesn't give you all the answers. But I think what it does do is he's pinpointing, okay, the throat is a place we need to investigate. Okay, the manner in which his body was found, fully clothed, when we see videos of him without a shirt on, that is another point that we need to investigate to further our understanding of this. Because like any medical examiner, they're not just taking the individual's body, they're also taking the circumstances and the information they have surrounding the body to come up with a cause and manner of death. And Ben Crump, I think, is attempting to put pressure on the state and have other people kind of have this unsatisfactory feeling of we need to put pressure on the state so they can get those answers. I think that is part of the motivation here.
And yet, Diane and Brian, the independent autopsy revealed no fractures or deep tissue injuries. Okay. And so that does sort of suggest, even if it's not conclusive, that he wasn't beat up. He may not have been thrown overboard. I mean, there are things that this can rule out. There were no gunshot wounds. There were no stab wounds. There was no, it doesn't seem like a violent end, at least before he went into the water. So there's still a lot of questions and a lot of circumstances to understand, but the absence of fractures or deep tissue injuries does seem like a significant point.
But that's not including the throat, which is what Ben Crump is talking about. Yes, the occipital bone, which we can get Dr. Sutton here to do a better job of it, but we're talking about the back of the head here, which you typically talk about like.
So they're saying that there wasn't any like physical, marks, if you will, on the body. But they're saying that the throat did not come with the body to DC for the independent autopsy. I wonder why they wouldn't have sent the throat along with the body. What y'all think? Interesting.
On the boat and hit the back of his head and lose consciousness, and that, yes, absolutely rule that out. But I think what Ben Crump is attempting to do is, here's a piece that is important, the throat, that we don't know. And I don't know if that's going to win him the day, but at least he's trying to apply pressures, I think, the tactic there.
Yeah, and Crump's also not a doctor, but he's trying to explain this in layman's terms. Listen, you're trying to say someone drowned, you need to be able to see if the body has water in it. You need to be able to see that person's throat. They've got this red mark on the back of the head. What does that mean? Aaron, how much of the state's autopsy is expected to answer some of these questions that Crump is now posing?
Not clear. It depends on the findings, I suppose, and how much of it is going to be released. We rarely get detailed autopsy results. That's something that typically only the families of the decedent end up getting. We'll get a basic cause and manner of death, but the kinds of details that you get in this independent autopsy, apparently with the concession of the family, are rarely released in official autopsies, but they're still not finished with it. So we'll see, and we'll also see what the toxicology says about what may have been in Wells's system at the time.
All right, Erica.
Okay, he probably has a little bit of alcohol, possibly. People outside in the water enjoying themselves. So that's interesting. So they did the independent autopsy. It's still ongoing, and they really haven't been able to conclude yet what really may have happened or contributed to what happened. It's kind of sad. I hope that the family gets answers regarding their child and what happened to him. I'm gonna tell you now, I'm not optimistic, but I want to be because they deserve to know what happened to their loved one. Okay, so prayers to them. I've seen the parents speak, and they're holding up pretty good considering what they've been through. Okay, so next up, we're gonna talk about Malcolm-Jamal Warner's widow. Malcolm-Jamal Warner, Theo from the Cosby Show. He passed away around this time last year, and he drowned in Costa Rica. And so his widow did an interview recently with Miss Gayle King regarding, what's been happening with her and the daughter since he's passed away. But also, after the interview was done, it became public that, she had to file $1 million lawsuit against, her mother-in-law, who is the executor of his estate. So let's kind of go ahead and get into this. And I want to mention that I didn't even know that this man was married until he passed away. Never knew that he had a wife, didn't know what she looked like. She was kind of behind the scenes. And honestly, I didn't even know what she looked like until recently when she had this sit down with Gayle King. So she is a person who likes to be kind of like, in the background. She wasn't trying to be front and center. She wasn't doing none of that kind of stuff. Okay. So I would imagine her having to, get in front of a camera and speak on this sensitive subject is quite difficult. Okay. So let's go ahead and check out what she had to say in regards to how she and the daughter are doing since her husband passed away.
Malcolm-Jamal Warner on the iconic sitcom The Cosby Show. It's still so hard to believe he's gone, and that's how many people still remember him. We fell in love with him, the show, everything about Malcolm-Jamal Warner. Well, this week, fortunately, marks 1 year since the actor drowned while on vacation with his family. They were in Costa Rica. His wife, Tanisha, is now suing over issues to do with his estate in a dispute over money. But in her first interview since his death, she wanted to focus on the emotional side of her grief. She talked about raising their daughter and a message that she is sharing with his fans.
After we lost him, you were very private. We didn't hear anything. And then this past September, you posted something. It was your anniversary, I think.
Our wedding.
Yes. What made you decide to do that?
Being in silence for a long time, I realized that there was a world out there that he had touched in such powerful ways that I wasn't necessarily seeing because my grief was sacred to me and I needed to keep it mine. And that posting for me was to let the world know I'm here.
I'm here and I'm feeling what?
I'm here and I'm experiencing the biggest loss of my life.
Yeah.
I bet.
Just because I'm still behind here with my silence and my grief on my own terms doesn't mean I don't see you.
Tanisha and Malcolm-Jamal Warner got married in 2022 and have one daughter together.
When did it go from friendship stage to I liked it at him a lot? Mm-hmm. When did it go to that?
3 months, third date.
While they kept their family private, he spoke lovingly about their relationship publicly.
Our relationship, our marriage, it's the stuff that people dream of. I say that here because I want listeners to know that it is possible.
Okay. I've never liked the spotlight, and so that's one of the things that he loved in me, meeting a woman that didn't care about what was on the red carpet at all. And so
and you really didn't care about any of that.
I did not. You know, I remember even going to an event with him, and we walked the wet carpet, and I was like, get me out of here. You know, there's too many lights. And I was like, can I just meet you at the end? You know, I often share with people that, yes, he was famous, but from my experience, when people met him, they were not wowed by his fame, they were wowed by him. You know, people would come up, and it wasn't like, oh my goodness, you're Malcolm. They'd be like, you have touched my life in such a big way, you have no idea.
One of the stars of The Cosby Show has died in a tragic accident.
Officials say the 54-year-old was swimming at a Costa Rican beach when he was swept away by a powerful current. Bystanders tried to rescue him, but he was pronounced dead at the scene.
Wow. So on that particular day, you were on vacation. So were you there first and then he joined?
Well, you know, the moments of that day, they occupy my body so deeply. So it's really hard for me to sort of relive what all of that was and to think about it, because it just breaks me in a way that makes it hard for me to sort of stay steady.
Well, what do you want to share about that day, if anything? I'll let you guide me. What do you want us to know about that day?
Worst day of my life.
I can understand that.
Feels unfair.
Feels unfair.
Only married for 3 years.
And all I could think about was my daughter.
Yeah.
And what I needed to do to continue to be her mother.
Yeah.
And be her only parent.
Was there, let me ask you this, was there a time that you thought you had lost both of them? Because that was one of the early reports. Did you, can you say where you were at the time?
I can't remember the details.
You really can't. Do you think you just blocked it out?
I think it was my body went through shock.
Do you still feel his presence? Do you still see him in this house? Did you ever think about moving?
He is here with me always.
She's not gonna leave that house.
Moving. Because all of our memories are here. And it hurts. I can't be in my own home without feeling the loss, but I can't walk away.
What would be most helpful to you to help you get through this?
You know, I often tell my friends who reach out all the time and may not necessarily get a response from me all the time, just don't forget us. And I think that that's what I'm looking for. You know, I think the hardest thing about grief is that people, they move on, you know, but for us, because we're his wife and child, there's no moving on.
Right.
You know, there's moving with and living with.
And the difference between the two is what?
He will always be a part of our everyday. And there's not a moment in my...
It's all right, Tanisha. So Gisela, could I have some tissue?
It's okay, I don't want tissue. There's not a moment in my day that I'm not affected, you know.
Just one look at her, and I know it's gonna be.
Today, Tanisha.
The good thing is that, you know, with him being, you know, a celebrity on the Cosby Show, they will have the ability to at least go like online and see all the different episodes that he played in, that type of thing, and you know, have those kind of memories. But it still sucks that you have lost your husband and your dad. You know what I'm saying? He was only what, 54? That's just, you know, wow. But let's keep it going, y'all.
Warner, who has a doctorate in psychology, is honoring her husband's legacy through River and Ember. It's a storytelling kit with rituals that provide an emotional foundation for children and their parents.
With the river being vulnerability and the ember being strength, and that's really what my husband stood for.
That's how you see him?
Yes.
River and Ember.
There was no separation. for me, when I think about other families, particularly other families who are grieving, I want them to know that they don't have to be separate.
Cumpleaños feliz.
Mommy and Papa the bully. Mommy and Papa the bully.
Mommy and Papa blood? Okay. They say time heals all wounds. I don't know. To me, it matters what you do with the time.
Yeah.
Matters what you do with the time.
I agree with that.
I feel like time just gives you space to manage in different ways, I would say. And so you just find more creative ways to be able to manage the life you now have.
But I love that you honored him, you honored yourself, you honored your daughter, and you love that you did that. Love that you did that. And I really appreciate you talking to us. I do.
I appreciate you coming to my home.
No, I appreciate you having us here. Wow. I was very moved by Tanisha, and we should say we did this interview before the lawsuit. I was just as surprised as everybody to hear that a lawsuit had been filed. I found her to be very sweet, very loving, very kind, and I reached out to her, and she said it was a formality. This is not a lawsuit that she wanted to file because it's based on what Malcolm, they had a prenup, and apparently there's an issue, not apparently, there is an issue with Malcolm's mom and Tanisha, clearly. But this is something that she did the interview because she wanted to thank people who have reached out to her.
She's so private. She's not talked about any of this.
Not any of this. And also she's getting a lot of support on social media. It says, if we still miss him, imagine how she feels. Grief is love with no place to go. I've always been told a daughter's a daughter for all of her life. A son is a son till he takes a wife. I see that in my own house.
Yeah.
Once you get married, it becomes a new responsibility. And I think most people are feeling Malcolm would have wanted his wife and his child to be provided for. I just hope they can work it out because for Pamela, she lost, it was her only child.
It's her baby.
So I understand her pain as well.
Yeah.
Just hope that there's a way that they can work this out.
Something struck me when she talked about how people move on.
Yes.
But she can't.
No, she
and
cannot.
She never will.
No.
And that hit me because I was asking myself, how am I showing up for people I claim are friends or even family that have lost someone? Because I move on.
Yeah,
I start adulting and I start working. So I'm calling on myself to show up in a better way for people that are dealing with
You heard her
loss.
say, just don't forget us.
Just don't forget
Just don't
us.
forget
Oh,
us.
man, that was
Thank you,
powerful.
Tanisha.
Very, very
Thank you,
powerful.
Tanisha, so much. Thank you.
Okay, so we've seen her interview with Miss Gail here. Hold on, we got Anthony here talking about what he's saying here. We tell him thank you. Talking about paying bills and all that. Okay, you can hit. Hey, if you would like, feel free to do a super chat or something like that. But anyway, y'all. So, this lady has been very private. She hasn't said much about what has happened with her husband, right? And all of that. And I just hate that he didn't go ahead and get that life insurance policy. The reason why she's asking for the $1 million is because in the prenup, he was supposed to maintain $1 million life insurance policy. And apparently, he did not obtain that policy, right? And so she's saying that she was struggling, with the baby and everything. And I guess she's been trying to work it out with his mom, who was the executive of the estate, to, I guess, come to some type of agreement. I think he was worth like maybe $3-4 million. I looked it up a couple days ago, but I will say he's worth enough to cover the $1 million that he was supposed to have on that policy for her, right? And that he did not get. So what I will say, a lot of times women are told, you're being a gold digger, stuff like that. When you have these prenups and things, you need to be like, look, sir, I need to see a copy of the what they call it, the premium that's paid annually. I need to see that this insurance policy is been paid for and it is still active, because you never know when anybody's going to pass away, right? And they were only married, I guess, right at 3 years, give or take. And so he probably thought, you know what, I'm 54, I got time. I'm not gonna pay for this right now. I got time. And he ends up sitting around here drowning. So, women, make sure that, and fellas, make sure if you get these prenups that you have these things understood. Like I would have it set up every year, you got to send me that premium so I can know that you have gotten this done. And what I really would say is you need to just go ahead and get it set up yourself and let him pay the premium. Make sure the policy is done. Now, I mean, you want your husband, you do not want him to pass away, but in the event that he does, and he's the breadwinner, you need to ensure that you and the kids are cared for. You know what I'm saying? So don't feel bad about, making sure that things are in order because, a lot of times you want to trust this man. He gonna make sure everything's good and take care of everything. You cannot operate in the blind, honey. Okay? So we have Luis H saying, sharing is caring. You can't take all that money to the grave with you. I know that's right. Then we got Anthony Devon saying, Tiff, just give a YN a chance, just one chance. A YN? A YN? Come on now. We got Luis saying, time awaits for no one. Exactly. Gotta go ahead and make sure everything is good to go. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want nobody to pass away, but we all do have to do this at some point, right? And if you got a family, you got to make sure that you leave that family well cared for. You do not want to be in a situation where you have left your family unprotected and you have, someone that you believe is going to make sure your people are good. And they're like, no, I ain't got to do that. Because once you're gone, their loyalty to you is also gone. Okay? They're not gonna be like, oh, well, I'm gonna take care of you. No, you left this person out, they're gonna think about themselves. That's how that works. So we got Anthony Devon saying, yep, you gotta make sure your paperwork is up to date and right. Wills, prenup, etc. Exactly. Exactly. So I hope anybody that has seen what's happening with Miss Tanisha here understand that, hey, I need to get this paperwork in order quickly because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Lord forbid anything happen to anybody. We hope that it don't, knock on the wood. Okay. So that's what I got on that. So y'all, what else we got to talk about tonight? What else we got? I'm not going to sit here and say too much else about Malcolm-Jamal Warner. I have beat that into the ground. What else we got? We talked about Ryan Clark last night. I just like that's just crazy. His whole situation with him losing that $2 million a year job, honey. At the end of the day, you go to work, do the job you get paid to do. Okay. And for anything else you want to talk about, you need to go and get you another platform, another job to do all that. Get your own business over there, honey. We got Anthony Devon talking about where you married me. Let's talk about that. Oh, we're not talking about that on this live, sir. Aren't you sweet? But y'all, it is 8:33 p.m. I am exhausted. I got up this morning, caught the train into work. I ended up staying at work until 5:10. I should have been off like at 4:15. Then the train was stalling at the different stops, taking forever. I didn't get home until about 6:30. And then we had the live start at 7:15. So I be really trying to make it here, y'all, so we can do this show right quick. But anyway, we got Louisa's. What about Nolan? Yeah, the update on Nolan was that they had did the independent autopsy and still inconclusive. They said there wasn't any like marks found on his body, but the throat wasn't provided to the independent um autopsy person. So there's that. Then they were saying that I guess the FBI is getting involved in the sense that the people who were associated with him are receiving threats. So they're getting involved to, assess those threats to those outside people. I thought they were getting involved helping to figure out what happened to the young man, but that is not what is going on, honey. But I hate that, that young man passed away. I really do want his family to get closure and to find out what happened, if that's possible, because, it's not going to change anything, but it does give you some level of closure, some level of, completion, if you will. in knowing, what happened. It's not gonna change nothing, but it's just the fact of knowing. Like they were saying, like, was he already unalive when he went into the water, or, like what happened? There was no gunshot wounds or anything like that, so that was good. There wasn't anything violent in that sense, is what they were saying. But I think they are still conducting this independent autopsy. That's my understanding. So yeah. So I don't know, y'all. That's what we got, you know. And like the lady had said, and how I had mentioned, like, you don't want to put out so much information to where people are being tainted by the info. When if you got to go to trial, then you got people that can provide a unbiased, decision, if you will. So you don't want to do that, because this is playing out in public opinion, public court of opinion. People, are automatically saying, well, he was the only black guy there. These kids did this to him. And as of right now, there isn't anything that's been provided or shown that necessarily supports that. That's all theory. Definitely want to make sure that, we let the folks that get paid to do this investigation, and come forward with something kind of factual, some type of hard hitting stuff, right? So that's the hope for that. No, I haven't heard the 911 call. What did the 911 call say? Help me out with that. I have not heard the 911 call in regards to Nolan Wells. Let me know what they said on the call. We got Ben. Ben, you were here yesterday. You ain't gonna give me today with your name. That's a beautiful tree next to a beautiful woman. Thank you so much. I kept my Christmas tree up from this past Christmas. It brings me joy. I like having it lit up. When I go live, it's my co-host. And yeah, when I go to work and I come home at the end of my day, I like looking at my tree. And so that's why it's still up. But thank you. Yep, Bendy, I know who you are, baby. I am not gonna say your whole name. You got me yesterday. You did. But okay, y'all, I am about to go ahead and log off. We've talked about Trump in regards to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the Save America Act. We talked about Nolan Wells and what's going on with that situation, and then Malcolm-Jamal Warner and his widow, if you will, in that $1 million lawsuit that she had to file as a formality. Okay. And so we got Ben D saying, I almost got you again. You are right, but you didn't get me this time. I got to be on the lookout for you. But anyway, y'all, I'm gonna go ahead and get off. I'll be back on Wednesday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern. If you have any ideas for me for topics on any of my community posts, put something in there. I answer everything. So you can let me know that way. And with that, you all have a good night and a good day tomorrow. And I will see you guys on Wednesday. Bye.